Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Well, I'd like to introduce our listening audience to an author. And you know we have many interviews with authors, and they really do cover a lot of subjects. But when I picked up this book, the cover, first of all, was very interesting. But then I started to get into it, and I could not believe how interesting it was. So I have David Singer, the author of The Mind Reader, on the phone, and we're going to talk about this. So good morning, David.
Oh, hi, how are you?
I'm great, and I hope that you realize what an excellent job you did on that book.
Thank you.
The people who have read it, do they also tell you, wow, what a mind reader you are?
Well, to be very honest, I'm a dentist.
I know.
And so I know a lot of people in where I live in South Florida, and most of the people that I know already have read my book. They keep on calling me and asking me when I'm going to start writing Mind Reader 2.
Right.
They really loved it, and so far I haven't had one critical review at all, and a lot of people have read my book.
And mine won't be critical either. It's coming out in our April issue. He is the book of the month for us in the Boomer Times, but I don't think anyone could be critical. First of all, it is fiction, even though it started out, there was a reason why you even wrote this from some information you had personally, but you really have quite a mind to be able to come up with all those things.
Thank you. Since I retired, I needed to do something. So I started writing. My first book isn't The Mind Reader. My first book is The Success of Failure, which I haven't published yet. But one of my best friends, Dan Friend, really helped me with it, and he's the co-author. And since he travels a lot, we were not able to ever review it, with the time needed. So it took us a long time to reread and finish that book. So while I waited for him to come back from his trips, I wrote The Mind Reader and 5 other books which I have finished.
You're kidding. So, I guess once you're a professional as a dentist, your mind doesn't stop, even if you retired. And you didn't retire because you particularly wanted to. Do you want to talk about that? That's quite a story.
Well, okay. I was born in Chernobyl, Romania, during right before World War II ended, and eventually we migrated from one place to the other. We lived in several countries. We lived in Argentina and then in Dominican Republic. And when I was very young, my parents sent me to the United States to study. And while in college, as soon as I finished the university, I met a Venezuelan, also born in Romania, and we moved to Venezuela, and that's where I worked for very, very many years as a dentist. And then around 5 years ago, just before I retired, I had a problem with my one of my hands. I started having tremors, and I visited some neurologists, and they, after examining me, they said that it was professionally related. A lot of dentists have problems with their backs and with their hands after so many years of practice. And I went from one neurologist to the other, not only in Venezuela but also in the United States. And then I remembered something that happened when I was very young. We used to live in Dominican Republic, and my father woke up one day. I was there for the summer. So my father woke up one day with a lot of anxiety because one of his legs had turned red. I mean, bright red. I remember that he made such a commotion that I got up, and my mother and we didn't know how to proceed. He said it didn't hurt, but the whole leg was red. So we went to a doctor. That same day, we went. My mom took him to a doctor, and The doctor looked at it, and he didn't know what it was. The next day, they did a biopsy, and there was nothing abnormal with the information, the pathology. And in fact, they took slides and they sent them to the United States to different hospitals to see if it could be identified. But it didn't hurt him at all. It had just changed color. So after 2-3 weeks of the same problem, my mother had a lady that used to come in on Fridays. Just all she did was press our clothes. That's all she did. And when she noticed the anxiety in my mom and my father, she mentioned that she knew of a man that used to heal. He was an excellent healer. So when my mom proposed the healing situation to my dad, he said, "Absurd. What are you talking about? You think I believe in quack
witch doctors, right?
Witch doctors."
Right.
So she couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that she was proposing, but she insisted. Listen, you have nothing to lose. Nothing. The thing doesn't go away. You're very anxious, so why not try it? So she finally brought him. The lady, the pressing lady, came with him one Friday afternoon around 1:00, and he was a very thin man. His clothes were all ragged. He looked like he was in a homeless type of situation. And he sat down right next to my father. He sat on the floor, and out of the box he took out bones. I'm not sure if they were either chicken bones or frog bones, or I was never able to identify them. But he started rubbing the bones on my father's leg and heaving each bone towards the back of my father. And after around 5-10 minutes, he stopped, collected all the bones he had thrown on the floor, and left. My father started laughing. He said, "You see, you wasted your time and effort," and the guy left. The next morning, my father got up with a totally healed foot. There was, in all my lifetime, there has never been an explanation for this miraculous coincidence. So then, in my book, that's what I did with my book. I started a story that I went to Brazil. Brazil is very well known for having healers, and that's where the fiction portion begins in my book, where my main character, which I make believe it's not me, finds someone that really heals him, and by doing that, he accidentally gives him an ability, which is the ability to read minds.
Right, and I mean, I have to tell you that was. So I realized when I was reading it, well, there was part true, but it really, as I was reading, no, this is really fiction, but it came from something like that. So my question, also you said in the book that the healer wouldn't even take any money.
Yeah, that's true. The lady that pressed our clothes said that no, he does not accept money. And he asked my mother, she asked my mother, if you have food, give him food, that he will take. And that's what my mom did.
Okay, so we have this situation, and you then you're in the same situation in a different way, that you have a arm that has tremors, which made you retire from being a dentist, and I guess you had to go find someone the same way. So what was your healer like?
Well, my fictional healer.
Yes, your fictional healer
was very, very similar to the one that my father had, and but in my case, I went looking for him because and the normal scientific progress was not able to cure me. So the healer did not accept money either. The healer did not accept money when I was in Brazil. When my character was in Brazil, I mean. And it's very interesting. As soon as people read the book, they will get hooked on the things that I do,
right,
or that my character does. I sometimes feel that I'm the character.
I know. I got confused as I'm reading this. I'm saying, so who is this? Is this the author? Is this his character? But But the thing that really was amazing, it was kind of funny in a way that your character, who's such a nice person, starts to be able to read people's minds, which people would think, well, that could be interesting. Well, it was in a way, but then tell about your character. It was a little weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was look, after I reread what I wrote, I felt a sensation, a very strange sensation, that I could actually look at people, and you know, when I look at them intensely, they tend to look away, because now the people who have read my book really feel that I might be reading their minds. So,
I love this.
In my book, what I did is that I couldn't continue reading everybody's mind, so I discovered that if I put on sunglasses, the intensity of my mind reading decreased, and that was my only way of relaxing. And it's very funny, because I started reading men's and women's minds, and friends, and some people who I did not think were my friends. And the ability was incredible, and it made me understand a lot of things of how people think and why they think that way.
Whoa, this was so creative for you to do that, and there are a lot of chapters in this book. I'm just going to tell everybody again. The name of the book is The Mind Reader, and I'm talking to the author, David Singer. He lives in Aventura, and he is a dentist. He stopped practicing. He retired, but he really is a born writer. I mean, you may have been a great dentist. I never went to you, so I don't know. But I have to tell you that you already said you had other books, and you have a big one that was going to come out eventually. And I'm glad, because you took all your intelligence and all your creativeness that you probably did for people's teeth, and now you're an author. I just have asked everybody in the review I did, buy the book, because it will put you somewhere else. You just can't believe the different scenarios. Which was one of your most interesting ones?
Well, the one where I was all of a sudden I became an operator for a security agency of the United States government, and they had me go to the United Nations to start reading the minds of the different countries that were not necessarily the best friends of the United States. They really wanted to see if I could interpret what all of the conversations they had and what their real feelings were. But the most interesting part was towards the end of the book, when I am kidnapped. I was kidnapped twice. Once I was kidnapped while I was working with the United Nations delegation. That was very interesting. But it was so much more interesting when I was kidnapped by the guerrillas. When I was sent to Colombia under different circumstances, and I was kidnapped by the guerrillas, and that was a very, very sensational chapter, because I thought that was my end. That was the end.
I did too.
But then, of course, you have to read The Mind Reader in order to find out.
But the interesting thing is how you even brought in another man who had been your friend and his wife, and how you and your wife decided, we'll go and do things. And when he realized what you could do, he knew that would be great, but he didn't realize it could also bring terror into your life.
Definitely. You know, all of these characters are based on real characters that are present in my life. And you know, when an author starts writing, especially in the beginning, when he doesn't have that much experience, he needs to create a character, and the easiest method is using people that he knows very, very well. So in the book, the character Michael is one of my best friends. I mean, I described him exactly as he is, and so is his wife and my wife, and many of the characters that I found myself that that I created are people that I have knowledge of them. Not maybe I've met them personally, or maybe I've read so much about that type of a person that I created that person.
Right, and in the book, it does have, the first page says, disclaimer, this is a work of fiction. Names, characters, businesses, places, events, and incidents are either the products of the author's imagination or used in a fictitious manner. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. I thought that was important that you wrote that, because it is a little bit not weird, but strange to think, is this really happening? Is this really true?
Yeah, that's true. I had one person, yesterday I went to a meeting, and there were at least 800 people there. And I might have known 15 of the people present. But one of the ladies came up to me and she asked me, "Hey, are you David Singer, the one that wrote The Mind Reader?" She said, "Yes." "Oh," so I asked, "Why?" She said, "I read your book, and the lady over there that knows you told me that you were David Singer. And can you read my mind?" I mean, she was serious.
Of course.
So I told her, "Well, right now I can, because I don't have my glasses on." my sunglasses.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
I thought it was funny.
It is funny. And as I said, I couldn't put the book down. I only decided to start reading it because I had a lot to do, but I finished that book in one time. I could not stop. And you know, there's some of the places it was fun because you did travel a lot and you explained where you went and all, but it's when you started to get into danger, when people who are not, you know, the best, they don't have the best morals, and other countries say, "Oh boy, we can get him and he'll tell us all the good things we need to know," right?
Yeah, exactly.
You think?
Well, of course, I did read some minds of things that happened which were not very, very nice. But of course, in my book, I avoided explaining too much about that.
Yes. So I wondered how, and I'm asking you, of course, You're not the character, you're the author, but let's put the character. I wondered if he really enjoyed reading minds, or would he have just rather not ever done that anymore?
Well, I tried to create a situation where he was afraid of reading minds, because he was afraid of finding out things that that would implicate or complicate his life.
Yeah. In fact, even your wife, the fictional wife, she realized that's how it started. She said, "You know just what I'm thinking, don't you?"
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Yeah, that is dangerous.
It's a good thing that she didn't read my mind.
That's funny, though. Yeah, that's true. That is funny. But you know, today, David, there are people, I wouldn't call them, well, maybe we can call them healers, but there are people who are very intuitive. They call them intuitives. Yes. And they can do a lot of things that professionals who've been trained cannot. Do you have any idea about that?
I'm aware of that. I've read a lot about that. And
most of the time they're from foreign countries.
Yes, it's something that isn't done very frequently in the United States. I'm going to explain. Do you know? Have you ever heard of people that heal with gems, with stones?
Well, with stones, or yes, I have, because of the energy in the stone.
Exactly. Well, some people actually have had incredible experiences with the healing power of stones, and that is also a paranormal activity, just like mind reading, which doesn't. In this case, mind reading, I don't think anyone can really read minds. You can maybe make intelligent assumptions of what is going on in someone's mind, but actually we really don't have that ability yet. I don't think we do.
Well, let me let me just share some things with you that there are, forget psychics, because I'm not thinking of them, but there are people who can do very interesting things. And, for example, I was a friend of one of the astronauts who walked on the moon, and he and other people in that category who were brilliant and had a lot of experiences, they once sat in a room together, and this is really true, they put in another room pieces of, I think some of it was, there were spoons and knives and different things, and they could take their mind and focus and twist those things from a different location. Have you heard about that?
Yes. In fact, I don't know if you remember someone by the last name of Fisher was capable of bending.
Right.
With his mind, he was able to bend a fork and a knife.
Yes, exactly. And it is true. And it's a certain, we don't really know what our mind can do. And energy, we know. And you as a scientist also, when you went to school, the energy in our brain is just used so minimally right now, but it will be as the years progress. I think we're going to find out that brain is amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of things to be discovered. There's no doubt. Right.
And so, when you think about medicine right now, it's progressing so quickly, and yet there are people who can do what they did to your character and heal something that they can't heal. There are many stories of people with cancer, and they've been everywhere, and they only have been given a very short time to live, and they wind up at some place that explores the energy in that body, and they have other means to do things, and they get well.
Well, you're probably talking about psychosomatic medicine.
Not necessarily psychosomatic. What they have is real. They really have cancer, but there are people who are able to use the power of energy, and I know energy healers. That's what we call them now.
Okay.
Where they can get on the level of energy which deals with where the cancer's energy is and do something about it. I mean, I'm involved with a lot of things like this. It's not hypnosis, but it's in that level. So I know that's why I enjoyed your book so much, because I thought, well, this is all really possible, even though the guy with the bones sounds, a little weird. But I think there are many people like that all over the world that can do that.
Yeah, that's something to be explored.
Right. Definitely. So is there a 2 book on this?
Well, I'm finished. I'll tell you one thing. Before I want to finish my book number 7, which I started a couple of weeks ago, and then I'll think about it. If I have a positive feedback, if it continues as it has been. And by the way, my book is going. This book has been so popular that since most of my friends speak Spanish, I've been asked. So right now I found someone. Although I speak Spanish fluently, I found someone that started translating it for me.
Fantastic.
I'm going to publish that one in Spanish maybe in 2 or 3 months.
That's a brilliant idea, because you are down in an area where there are many Hispanics, and because you come from a Latin, area. I mean, you certainly traveled to all the areas that speak Spanish. I think that's a brilliant idea. Absolutely. It could even, it's going to take off and go worldwide, because I just think it's such a fascinating idea.
Well, listen to this. I have a grandson who studies in Shanghai, China, and he took the book with him.
Right.
And he has some of his Chinese friends read it, and he's studying international business. So he came up with the idea as saying, hey, if I have it, will you give me the permission to have it translated to Chinese? Because in the United States, there are only 320 million or so people, but in China, there is over 1 billion. So
God.
So he said, Grandpa, can you imagine
Yeah.
The amount of readers.
Right. Even 1%.
Readers.
Even 1%, right?
I know a quarter of 1% is
right.
enough.
Well, there's great hope for that. I just, it's funny. I told you that I have been doing this. I've been interviewing authors, and we've been featuring authors for over 20 years. And a lot of the books are terrific. Some of them are, professionals in the medical world. Some are explorers. They're all different kinds of authors. And I like many of the books, but frankly, this was unique. This was different. This was, you could smile. And you know what I liked? Your chapters were very short. Sometimes there were 2 pages, maybe sometimes 3 or 4, but you got finished with it. And then you went on to another one. And people like that.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah. And so just in the time we have left, I just want everyone to know. And you can go, please do buy the book, and you can go, of course, to Amazon.com. My author is David Singer, and the name of the book is The Mind Reader. It's, let's see, it's only the pages, let me see, we're only talking about 145 pages, something like that. But it's worth doing it. And David, we will have you on another time, and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
All right, bye.